Welcome back to You Be the Judge. We're on location now in Montrose, Pennsylvania, outside the Montrose movie theater where they're showing a premiere of the movie Fracking. And their guest tonight is a man that anyone who's studied the natural gas drilling business is familiar with. His name is Mayor Calvin Tillman from Dish, Texas, and he's had a lot of experience with the problems that the gas and oil industry has caused for communities through hydraulic fracturing and also the transmission of natural gas through compression stations and metering stations. And Mayor Tillman, thank you for being with us.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure.
Welcome to Northeastern Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I just love it here. This is really a great place and good people, and I enjoy coming up here.
Tell us a little bit about the story of Dish, Texas.
Well, Dish actually was founded in 2000 as Clark, and in 2005 we changed our name to Dish, and everybody in the town gets free Dish Network. And so that made a lot of publicity several years ago. That goes on for 10 years, and we're also just outside of the urban area, and so we're a popular route for the natural gas pipelines coming out of the Barnett Shale. And
now, you talked about the Barnett Shale. Most of us here are familiar with the Marcellus Shale, but actually hydraulic fracturing was going on in the Barnett Shale a lot longer than it has been up here in northeastern Pennsylvania.
Well, actually, the techniques that they're using in the shale plays, the hydraulic fracturing that's used in shale, was developed in the Barnett Shale about 15 miles west of Dish. So we were in the heart of it all.
You know, I'm honored to be working with a good friend of yours, Al Stewart, Attorney Al Stewart, who has been involved in a lot of litigation in the Dallas-Fort Worth area for people that have suffered enormous problems as a result of the exploration for natural gas with this new system that is supposedly so safe and so wonderful.
Right, right.
Tell us a little bit about your town and the number of compressor stations, etc.
Well, we have a dozen pipelines that come through the community, and we have a dozen compressor engines, and we also have 3 dehydration units, 4 metering stations, 18 wells inside of our corporate limits, and about 50 or so just outside of our corporate limits.
They tell me that a compressor station is a fairly loud situation.
It certainly can be. There is they can enclose them, and they're much quieter if they're enclosed. We have kind of a mixed batch. Some of these are inside of our corporate limits. Some of them are just outside of our corporate limits, and they're just outside by design, so that we don't have to. They don't have to deal with the town and comply with our regulations. And so it's kind of a mixed batch. But yes, if they're not enclosed, they're extremely loud.
What kind of problems have these stations and the convergence of all of these gas lines caused for Dish?
Well, the emissions that they produce, the air emissions, have been just a very intrusive problem in our community. They put carcinogens in our air, and you know there's this horrible odor that makes your eyes burn and your throat scratch, and so it's been very intrusive to have this in our community.
The problems that you see in Dish are mostly with air pollution, or have you had spills? Or?
Yeah, of course we've had spills, and of course we've had water contamination. You know, we had a private well that has some drilling mud miraculously appear in it, and so yeah, we've had the gamut of the problems too.
But we hear from the industry there isn't a case anywhere in the world of a well being contaminated by natural gas drilling. I have a few clients that would disagree with that, since their wells have been contaminated with migration of methane gas. I've got a very courageous young lady now that is suffering from enormously high levels of barium in her bloodstream. We've got some great people up in Dimmock in Susquehanna County who were devastated, and they became kind of nationally famous, but it doesn't happen, the industry says.
Well, I guess that would depend on how you define is how they define it and how I would define it, and some of your clients would define it. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious that this is this is an industrial process, and it needs to be done with precision, and mistakes happen. And actually, I was at a seminar here a few weeks ago, and Aubrey McLennan was speaking there, and he made a statement that they're starting to acknowledge that there could be some mishaps and some problems.
Well, you know, it just seems that there's so much natural gas available that site selection of well locations. We just learned that the Department of Environmental Protection is issuing permits in as little a time as 35 minutes. It just doesn't seem that something that is potentially so dangerous to a homeowner as a well within 1,000 to 500 feet of their home could possibly be issued a permit that quickly with any thought to safety.
Well, it's just an administrative process. They're looking to see if all the squares are filled and make sure the check don't bounce, and that's pretty much all they're concerned about.
We're gonna take a break for a second, and when I come back, I want to talk to you a little bit about shale test.
Okay.
So please stay tuned to You Be the Judge. Hi, I'm Todd O'Malley with the law offices of O'Malley and Langan. If I say the phrase life-changing experience, what do you think? Getting married, having a baby, buying a home, all good things. I'll bet you didn't think work injury, and that's a problem with our society. People don't realize a work injury can change everything, destroy your earning power, hurt your family, and damage your health. If you're hurt on the job, call O'Malley and Langan, 1-800-817-COMP. Welcome back to You Be the Judge. Our guest is Mayor Calvin Tillman from Texas, and hydraulic fracturing is our subject. Mayor, we went off to break. We talked a little bit about the shale test program that you have, and it's a terrific asset to the people up here who are all concerned about the quality of their air and water. Tell us a little bit about it.
Well, as we've traveled around, we've noticed that a lot of times this sort of activity and these negative impacts will be in areas where they don't have the means to adequately get environmental testing. And so shale test is designed to get environmental testing to those people who need it and who can't afford it, the lower income families, the communities like Dish that are negatively affected. And so so that's the gist of it.
And how long have you been doing this?
We started last fall in Texas, and we've been up here this entire week opening it in several places here in the Marcellus Shale. And so we're traveling around talking a little bit about it.
And the quality of the air that you find when you get near some of these compressor stations, what are you finding?
You're finding a battery of carcinogens and different chemicals, and we don't know exactly what those chemicals do when you combine them. So you have the benzene toluenes, you have carbon disulfide, and you have these other chemicals. Well, what happens when all those chemicals are combined? You've got this toxic soup that nobody really knows what's going to happen when you're exposed to. So that's been, just like I said, it's just been a tremendous problem in Texas, and I know it's a problem here. And so hopefully, we can help some of the folks get some relief.
Senator Bob Casey is the sponsor of the Senate of the bill to require the natural gas industry to disclose what's in those frac fluids, what dangers there are. And one of the things that he and I have spoken about is the fact that in Scranton, Pennsylvania, we had the coal mines.
Right.
We sent people down to the coal mines and basically gave them a death sentence.
Right.
Because when they came out of the coal mines after 10, 20 years, their lungs were so filled with atherosclerosis, the coal dust, black lung, that they basically drowned in their own body fluids. And it happened for generation after generation after generation. And Senator Casey said, we've got to learn from that mistake.
Right.
We're not learning it again. We're
Right.
making the same mistake over. God knows what's going to happen to the families here in northeastern Pennsylvania when we learn what exposure to these chemicals is going to cost them.
Right, and unfortunately, it's not only the workers that are being exposed, it's our children. It's our families, our elderly, the people who are most susceptible to chemicals and, chemical exposure. They're the ones that are being exposed, not just the workers.
One of the great lawyers in America who passed away a couple years ago, Fred Barron, really led the charge in exposing and fighting for people who were exposed to asbestos. And I'm active with a group called WILLIG, which is the Workplace Injury Law and Advocacy Group. And we brought some of the folks from Montana, Libby, Montana, to come in and talk to us. And they talked about how the industry was so kind. They supplied playgrounds with all this great material the kids could play in. And it was asbestos. And the entire city is now dying of asbestosis.
That's
and I
horrible.
mean, we repeat our mistakes time and time again, and it's a shame. And thank goodness we have people like you who've been touched by it and who want to do something. And I can't thank you enough for being up here. And thanks for being a guest, and you be the judge.
I really appreciate you. Thank you.
Thanks so much. We're ready to wrap up the show now after a day of traveling through Gasland here in northeastern Pennsylvania. Benton Township, where we saw people fighting for their community to avoid a gas drilling rig to be put right near Baylor's Pond. And here in Mount Rose, where people are very concerned about the health and safety of their residents, as gas drilling in the county of Susquehanna has seemed to have taken over, and everyone has an opinion. But I hope this week was informative to you, and I hope this week, once again, you'll see what's going on around you and take the opportunity to get involved with this very important issue. Call your state senator, call your state representative, tell them what's on your mind. And remember, it's up to you to be the judge.